The following episode of the Maui Chamber of Commerce's Business Matters was originally broadcast on September 19th, 2023.
Aloha and welcome to Business Matters. This is a great radio show that is sponsored by our friends at Mokulele Airlines, and I'm your host, Cindy Paulos. I'm filling in for Pamela Toonpop, who has a very important national Zoom to take care of today. And today we've got a great show for you. We're going to learn about how to apply for FEMA assistance and how to work with them. And also, we're going to find out a little bit later on the show about the Council's Recovery and Resilience Plan with Alice Lee. Starting off, I'm going to start with Patrick Boland here, Media Relations Specialist, Federal Emergency Management Agency. Patrick is a great guy. I talked with him before. He came to America as an immigrant with his family and moved to the United States from Ireland, one of my favorite places, in 1957. His parents came to America to build a better life in the greatest nation on earth. That dream has been realized, and Patrick is forever grateful to our country for granting him and his family citizenship. Patrick now works as a media relation specialist for FEMA. And he's worked his entire career in the communication industry and newspapers, magazines, and the broadcast industry. Yay, broadcasting. And in 2017, as his retirement time approached, Patrick decided to fulfill a long-time desire. He knew he had to serve the nation in some way, so he joined FEMA. And his role with FEMA is to communicate, such an important word, to communicate to the survivors of disasters, and that brought him to some very challenging places. He worked in areas such as Louisiana, Florida as well, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Maine, Florida, Georgia, and now here in Hawaii. He's dedicated to helping Hawaiians recover from this wildfire disaster, and he's lived in, so many places. He lived in near that awful wildfire in California, and during the fire he aided friends fleeing from the flames, and the days, weeks, and months that followed, he continued helping his friends and neighbors recover. And that personal experience provides him with a great understanding of what Maui wildfire survivors and all the people of Maui are going through. So it's really a pleasure to welcome you. How are you doing today, Patrick? There you are. Sorry.
Glad to be here with you. And
yes.
Be able to discuss these important issues.
Well, there are so many, and you know, a lot of what's happened, I think, from my experiences, first there was the shock and everyone just trying to deal with that shock, and then what happened, and then the first month, FEMA was there helping so many people in so many ways that I think a lot of people weren't even quite able to understand the depth of the work that you did. You know that, and I know how many people were helped by you in this last month and a week about. I mean, there's been so much money given out and so much help. I think it's, how many millions of dollars are you at in what's been given out so far?
Well, right now, Cindy, the amount that's been provided for individual assistance to people and their families is over $24 million.
Wow.
And that amount is evenly divided between losses of personal property, as well as funding people's lodging in the hotel program that Red Cross is managing. So we're trying to spend our money to where it can do the most good and use our programs to assist people financially to begin the process, of rebuilding their lives.
Well, I know there's been a lot of confusion. You know, I imagine half of your questions have to do with people who are very confused about this rather huge process. I mean, I know the announcement went out at Red Cross. You only had till, I think, yesterday to actually file for Red Cross help. But I think it's important people realize the differences, what that means versus how FEMA can still help people.
Yeah, Cindy, I will just say on those registration deadlines for assistance. We set deadlines because without a deadline, nothing happens, right?
Right.
So people need to have a finish point. If there's an emergency situation for someone who has not been able to register for assistance with Red Cross, they can still reach out to Red Cross and ask them for assistance, and they will make exceptions as needed. So I just want people to understand that we really want to get this process moving, and that's why we've had Red Cross, for example, set deadlines as well as FEMA. But for people not to be discouraged and to make sure they know that, we're here to help. Red Cross is here to help. There's so many agencies on the ground in Maui and the people of Maui especially to help. So it's a great effort, and it's needed because of this terrible disaster. So just stay encouraged. I guess I would tell you the shock of an event like this takes a long time to get over. But the best thing you can do to get over it is to begin working. You can get back to your life that you want to have. And part of that is creating a little financial piece for people so they have the basics to begin their life.
Well, I have to say that's very good news. I'm so glad to hear that because I think a lot of people don't understand some of those things that they can still apply. I wouldn't have guessed that. We hear that and we thought, well, that's, my gosh, what if I didn't? And they panic, I'm sure. Did you have some people say, what do we do? I mean, is this over? Did you have some calls and people concerned?
Well, Red Cross manages that piece, and we're talking about their registration. Our registration for FEMA assistance is October 10th. So we're a little bit away from that, and we'll start communicating that to people. But with Red Cross's piece, they have their own schedule. Then we're really important right now. We have over 7,000 people in lodging that Red Cross is managing. So you can imagine the scale on that and the need to be able to be organized and then begin to transition people into other types of housing, right? And that's a big role. So that deadline and creating that is an important part of setting the stage for the next steps.
Oh, absolutely. So tell us what people can get help from FEMA at this point, and how do they apply for that help if they need it?
So registering for FEMA assistance can be done a number of different ways. One is on our 800 number, 800-621-3362. And that's for people, who, if you have already registered, that number can also be reached to talk to a FEMA representative about your application for assistance, because in some cases your application for assistance may take a little bit longer to process. You may get some immediate financial assistance, but for bigger issues, larger property losses, things you have to document, it may take a couple of phone calls or two. So that number is great for that.
Let's repeat that number, because I know people are driving, and sometimes I even have to repeat a number 3 times to remember it. But we can
radio could record, right?
That's an interesting idea. There must be an app for that somewhere. But I know the 800. So repeat 800 what?
621-3362.
621-3362. I'll repeat it one more time. 621-3362. And I'm one of those people, Patrick, that hate calling an 800 number because you get so many different things you get referred to. How do you get to talk to?
If you'd like to talk to a human being, push 7. It's not terrible.
Thank you.
Our number is not that way. You'll get through to people pretty quick on this. This line is really important, and we make sure we get people, to talk to an individual assistance specialist as soon as possible. So don't hesitate to call it. I guess I'll say that.
It's so interesting, Patrick. I'm kind of at the point where I'm going, my gosh, there seems to be disaster after disaster after disaster related to what's going on with the climate change and everything. And I guess through all of this, you've been seeing, and all of your people have been seeing, they're kind of probably stretched to the limit. There's been so many things happening. And after a while, I began to realizing how important disaster assistance is going to be in the years ahead, because if we're seeing all these things happening now, it kind of makes you stop and think, And I guess one of the most important things I'm realizing, is how important there is someone there to talk to, and how to negotiate your way to getting around to getting the help you need. So
that's really great, Cindy. Yes, and we have our disaster recovery center at the Lahaina Civic Center, and we're having hundreds of people go through there every day. That's for people in Maui and Lahaina particularly. To go to that recovery center is so important because you can meet there with our people, with a Small Business Administration. Red Cross is there. The state is there. I don't know. There's just so many people that are there to help. So that just encourage people to visit that disaster recovery center.
What are the biggest questions you're seeing that need answered? Maybe you can answer those questions.
I think the biggest question that people really have is, how do they meet their immediate needs? And what are they going to do in the future for housing, right, in the systems? Mm-hmm. Particularly, everyone wants housing security, of course. So we've been working on that because the state task force, along with FEMA and the county, that are working hard to come up with a midterm and then a longer-term housing solution for people. So that's really important. And for your business, for business people, this is really important as well, because if you do have housing, multifamily housing, you can participate in the program. With FEMA, you can register with the Small Business Administration as well, and I would encourage people to do that for their businesses to make sure that they understand that the opportunities are out there and what is required to work with the federal government. So there's a website, sam.gov, that is used for federal contacts and procurement opportunities for people to assist, or for businesses to help in the disaster recovery. They want to definitely go to that website and register with it and then learn how to navigate that so they can help out with these opportunities. Nothing feels better than helping.
Okay, that's a new one to me. I had not heard of that site. So once again, I'm going to ask you to repeat that.
Yes, Cindy. So it's called the Systems for Award Management. The acronym is SAM. And this is for contractors interested in doing business with FEMA or other federal agencies. And the web address is real simple, sam.gov, so www.sam.gov.
Well, that's a good one to know. I'm glad to hear it. That's really, I've tried to keep up with all this stuff, Patrick, but it's so hard because there's so much information, pages and pages. And so thank you for that. I know that we do have a lot of people that are saying they know someone or have had a situation where they got turned down and they're completely discouraged. And I remember talking to Daryl many times, and I've been hearing this almost like a mantra: don't give up if you got turned down. And this is so important too. So can you please let people know, if they got turned down, it doesn't mean necessarily that they're down and out. Can you explain what happens if someone does get turned down for assistance the first time around?
Sure. And we use these letters to notify people often that their applications are incomplete. So their initial application will result in what's called a declination letter. But the first thing is to read your letter all the way to the bottom of the letter and not just stick to the headlines. Because at the bottom of the letter, in the copy, they're going to explain to you what's required to respond, either to appeal or to provide additional information. And it happens very frequently in disasters when people have applied for assistance that FEMA doesn't have enough information to make the correct decision and to award the right amount of assistance. FEMA money is a grant. It's not a loan. It doesn't have to be repaid. So It's really important that FEMA, to comply with their federal regulations, gives money to people who really need it, and it's documented as necessary. So the process can be a little bit, I won't say it's complex, but I will say that for people who are not used to dealing with it, everything, with the federal government, when we say it's a federal case, we mean it's going to be a little more complicated, right?
Yeah.
But don't be discouraged, Cindy. Honestly, those declination letters are often just a request for more information. Mm-hmm. It's just a formal process that the federal government and FEMA has to go through.
Well, we have a lot of businesses, and this show is Business Matters. We have a lot of businesses who would like to help. I mean, I'm sure you've heard that. I hear it all the time from people who would like to help and work with FEMA. But if that's the case, what can businesses do if they're interested in working with FEMA?
So the sam.gov website is really important. That's one level that they really need to get in up there, and they need to register. They can register their business as a business entity, and that will give them access to, seeing what contracts are available and understanding the scope of what's required. And familiarity with it is really important. So I really encourage people to dedicate some time with someone in the organization to study that site and know how to navigate it. The other thing is that FEMA posts contracting opportunities on a website, and that's called a Federal Business Opportunities website. And this is a simple address too, and I'll give it to you now. It's fbo.gov is the address. The web address, again, www.fbo.gov.
That's easier to remember. Thank you. Because you think of Federal Business Opportunities, FBO. That one I can get.
That's right. And it's important. That's another site you're going to want to be on. I would also advise people, Cindy, the Small Business Administration, not only do they loan money to people in businesses, disasters, but they also contract with businesses.
Wow.
And they advise people on that. They have a website that's dedicated to that as well.
Wow.
And it's their basic website, sba.gov. But after sba.gov, there's a / and then the word contracting.
Interesting.
And that web address will take you to where you can you can study and understand what SBA does in terms of contracting with businesses, and this is going to be an important place for people.
So that's part of the Small Business Administration reaching out to contract. And I imagine right now, my gosh, every contractor is going to be very, very busy for a while.
Well, the housing contracts are, they've been posted already for some housing to support the survivors in lodging. That's already up there. Debris removal is a very large piece for people in the construction industry. And the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers manages that, Cindy, not FEMA or SBA.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
And so people, the businesses that want to get involved in the debris removal process need to register with the Army Corps of Engineers.
Interesting.
And they have a website like everybody else.
Yeah.
But with the Army, it's probably a more complicated address than the Army, right?
Not.
However, we call USACE, they're one of the greatest government organizations ever. They do such tremendous work, and I just can't compliment them enough. But they do have a website, and it's usace.army.mil/missions, and people can do Google searches to locate this too. But look for the Army Corps of Engineers and look for search term emergency operations, and reach out to them. And for contractors, this is really great, and we really need them. We need people locally to be able to perform this service. It's going to be more complex than in a routine disaster because of the unfortunate fatalities that have taken place here, and everyone's very touched and concerned about that. But people can get involved, and businesses can do a great service to their community, to Lahaina and Maui, by participating in these programs and working with people.
Well, I've talked to EPA, and my gosh, what they're going through, and then trying to get that all cleared so it can then have the removal. And that's a very complicated process. And I would imagine some places, like maybe upcountry, might not be quite as difficult to remove debris as it would be in some areas, So,
of course, yeah. There wasn't as much property damage in Kula as there was in Lahaina, of course. So,
yeah.
But you're right about EPA. What a great organization, and the people on the ground. You can't say enough good things about them.
That's
the
the
hard
truth.
work they're doing.
Oh, I'm unbelievably impressed, and I heard from one of your representatives how FEMA are reaching out to hire people, and some of the jobs that were being offered, I believe, last Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, there were some job fairs that were offering some great opportunities for work. And I know right now, unfortunately, we have a very high unemployment rate because of the loss of jobs because of the fires. So how was that, the job fairs? What was the response? Did you give people some good jobs?
Well, it's really a great opportunity for individuals to start in emergency, what we call emergency management, our area of specialty. And there are some really good positions available for people with expertise as well as people who are just starting out. But these local hire fairs are still ongoing, too. We've actually scheduled more because FEMA is passionate about bringing people in locally who've been in the disaster. And it really is a great process of helping the community to work together with FEMA. So this is a big program, and there are many people in FEMA who started their careers as a local hire and now are senior executives and management people contributing. So I just encourage people. I'll tell you, the fairs we have coming up are on September 18th, 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. And they're at Napoli Park in Lahaina. And that's for Friday, Saturday, 22nd and 23rd. It'll be at the Lahaina Civic Center as well. So I can't say enough about, if people are really interested, come out and talk to our people. You get a chance to meet face-to-face with the people in human resources, and they can explain the positions and what's needed and what kind of benefits are available. So
there were some great benefits, and there was some great pay and great benefits, and I loved even hearing about the jobs that were available last week. Maybe they're filled, but the historical preservation specialist and environmental floodplain. There were interesting jobs that I think people would really find beneficial, because a lot of people, as you know, and you've seen, a lot of people want to help, Patrick, but to be able to help and even get paid for it, even better. Even better.
Well, yeah, I mean, you turn your passion into a career.
Yeah.
And when you have an experience like this, it changes you dramatically, and sometimes it really becomes a stumbling block that turns into a stepping stone for people to have a career with FEMA and make bigger contributions to help other Americans in times of need.
And there's going to be so much of this, as I said, and I'm very impressed. I have to say, I've been very impressed with everyone I've talked to from FEMA, and so many people have told me of the help that's been offered, and it really overcame a lot of the people's impression of what may have been left over from ages ago of other disasters that happened. And so, I mean, I'm just speaking from experience here. I've just heard nothing but good things about FEMA.
I'm sorry, Cindy, go ahead, please.
Oh, I just said I've heard nothing but good things. So I really do have to say thank you. The proof is in the pudding, and this pudding has been very, very, very beneficial and helpful for so many people. And so I'm extremely grateful for you and the entire team, all those that are here trying to help. And the best general way to get information about FEMA, that website is?
So disasterassistance.gov is our disaster registration website for people who want to apply for assistance. FEMA also has its own website, FEMA.gov, which is the gateway to everything about FEMA.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot there. But thank you. I really appreciate you reaching out. Communication in these times is so important, and a lot of people are too busy to be even able to do what they could do on that. So it's so good to have people like you reaching out, clarifying, and communicating about what's going on. So have a wonderful day, and thank you so much for your help.
Thank you, Cindy.
And we're going to take a quick break and hear from our sponsor, Mokulele Airlines.
Mokulele Airlines operates the largest commuter airline hub in the country, right here in Kahului. Fly Mokulele from Kahului to Molokai, Lanai, Hana, Waimea, Kona, and now Hilo. Mokulele also operates the only flights between Kapalua and Honolulu. There is never a middle seat on Mokulele, and every seat has a window and aisle. Visit mokuleleairlines.com and take your next flight from the newly renovated Mokulele Terminal.
And I'm very honored to have our next guest on the line, Alice Lee. She's the chair of the Maui County Council, and she holds a county council seat for our hometown here, Wailuku, Wai'ehu, and also Waikapu. And previously, Chair Lee served for 10 years on the council from 1989 to 1999 as a former director of housing, a big job, and human concerns. And she was that from 1999 to 2006. She's advocated for key initiative attracting the quality of life on Maui. Welcome, Alice. How are you?
Good morning. I'm fine. How about you?
I'm good. We're at the point, I think, most all of us, where we realize things aren't the same and that this is going to take a whole different attitude change. And, where we were working hard before, maybe we'll have to even work a little harder, be a little more patient, a little more understanding, and a little more compassionate than ever before. Have you sensed that at all?
Oh, yes. We've never experienced a tragedy on this level before. the loss of lives, the loss of property. It's devastating, and so it'll take the entire community to work toward healing and then recovery.
Yeah. And that comes in so many ways and it's almost like every person has their own way of dealing with it. So, you've got a huge job to do, Alice. Comprehensive recovery and resilience plan. Boy, I can't even imagine. What does that encompass?
Well, we envision the implementation of this proposal to include multiple meetings with residents from Lahaina and the West Side. And so I say Lahaina, I mean Lahaina town, and then beyond that and before that. So the West Side, the entire West Side. And we believe that it's really important that the plans that we come up, the comprehensive plan and individual plans that we come up with should be reflected by the residents' wishes, suggestions, and desires. So that is the purpose behind having all these multiple meetings, so that everybody feels included and they feel that we really care about their point of view, so that we don't make plans that exclude them. And that's what we fear. Sometimes other entities might have good intentions, but you really need to talk to the people who are most affected and not assume anything. And so that's what we're doing. We started on September 1st when the proposal was sent to the council, and we had good testimony then. Then we had this matter was sent to the Great Committee, and the Great Committee had a meeting yesterday, and that in the chambers. The reason for the chambers, because we had intended to have all of our meetings on the West Side, but believe it or not, it's very difficult to find a venue. So we finally found one for our next meeting. I think it's on the 20. I'll get it for you.
Yeah.
26th, I think. 25th or 26th. And that will be at the Westin. That will be at the Westin Hotel. And because we want to make sure that the hours are convenient for folks who are working and the folks who are not working, the meeting will start at 9 in the morning, and we'll take testimony all the way till 10 o'clock that night.
Well, this is good to hear, and I'm going to ask you once again to repeat that, because that's important information. I hadn't heard that before. What day and what date is that meeting going to happen?
Okay, I'm looking for it right now.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And I'll get to you before the end of the program.
That's no problem.
I will. But the idea again is we want to include people. We want this process to be inclusive, and we stress that. So not only are we encouraging people to come and testify, but we are also encouraging people, if you for some reason don't want to testify or are unable to testify, then we have an address, okay, an email address. And this is the Great Committee is the standing committee that is handling all the testimony. And it is great.committee@mauicounty.us. Great.committee@mauicounty.us. So people can feel free to email their testimonies or suggestions, ideas, complaints, questions, whatever concerns they may have. And that's very important.
It's
the
very
committee
important.
chair is Council Member Nohe Uuhajens, and she, like I said, conducted her first meeting yesterday and is very, very open to receiving testimony. And the idea is we want to have as much testimony as possible. We're not interested in just having to hear from a few people. We want to hear from everybody to the extent possible.
Boy, that's a tough one.
So the plan is to, at these meetings, record all of the suggestions and priorities, especially the priorities of the people, and record them, document them, and this will form the basis for eventually for the recovery and resiliency plan. So when we have all this list of priorities, we have 8 standing committees on the county council, and so the subject matters will be sent to one of these committees. Like, for instance, if people have states that housing is a priority, that will go to the housing committee. If somebody says social services is a priority, and then that will go to what we call the WhatsApp committee, and so on. Infrastructure matters would go to the water and infrastructure committee. So everybody's concerns will be addressed specifically in committee after we have established what the priorities are from the community. So this is what the council is doing. We want to make sure that everybody again is included. We can't stress that enough. And then we will again break into committees, and we'll take it from there. The committees will come up with proposals, and all of these proposals will comprise the comprehensive recovery and resiliency plan of the council.
I can't even imagine the amount of work that's going to take, Alice. It's a huge job. And it, it's interesting how everyone expresses their concerns, and possibly that was already seen at this last meeting, because there is anger, there's frustration, and there's everyone who has their own individual beliefs, of course, are very, very strong feelings about their beliefs. And so this is going to be an amazingly important job. And at the same time, I've seen some people kind of scream louder than other people, and other people not say anything but be silent. And then you kind of wonder, well, is it one person who's talking very loud and using social media and everything? Is that really representing the whole community? Or is it just because they feel it stronger and they're more apt to find ways to express it? And so it's really hard to get a real objective idea of what's really going on, with especially social media being used, and sometimes not even from here locally. So that's a real interesting balancing act, isn't it?
Oh, yes, it is. It is a challenge because we do have people in the community who only represent themselves, or a very small minority. We will record their comments as well. We'll record everybody's comments. But we're taking the priorities. So those that, if we see that in the majority of the information we receive, maybe whatever falls in the top, let's say 20, 25 on the list of priorities is what we'll look at. Yes, we won't please and satisfy everyone in the community.
Yeah.
But we know that whether it's this subject or any subject, there's such a diversity of opinions.
Yeah,
and we acknowledge that, we accept that, but we have to go with the majority.
Yeah,
and so all the people have different theories about what happened, and have unusual requests. We will consider everything. But the bottom line is that we will try to meet the needs of the majority of the people. And I do have that date now. The Great Committee will meet on September 27th at the Westin, as I mentioned. September 27th. And that is a Wednesday.
Just looking that up on my phone. What day is that? Because I go more by days these days.
Wednesday the 27th at the Westin Hotel, starting at 9 a.m., going until 10 p.m.
Wow.
People, work the night shift and can't make it either in the morning or, we're trying to get everybody.
That's a long day.
That's not the end-all meeting. If there's a need, if people need another meeting, we will have another meeting at the West End. We have an agreement with the West End that if we need to have another meeting, we're going to do it. So that's the plan. Unfortunately, the Lahaina Civic Center is not available, and we don't have any other county facilities that we could use that's available.
Now,
so that's the reason why we're going to the hotel.
And again, I want people to remember, because I happen to have noticed driving around Wailuku and Central Maui, there's a huge amount of more cars driving around. It's like, okay, we don't have so many visitors, but I think we have probably a third of Lahaina here on this Central Maui now. Have you noticed that?
I live in a subdivision that's generally hard to get out of anyway. So I just try to time my commute so that, I don't hit the morning school traffic or the afternoon Pauhana traffic.
Well, I'm just saying that because
when you do that, when you plan your day, it works out.
Well, in case people are here now, I think a lot of people had to find housing on this side, that you can, if you can't get away and go to Lahaina, I want to reiterate that you said people can actually email their concerns as well. So they can be heard that way if it's very hard for them to get to the West End.
Oh, of course, yeah. If they can't go or they don't want to, appear in public, that's fine. They can send an email to great.committee at mauicounty.us, and we'll get their testimony, and so people will have various ways to reach us, or you can just call your individual council members. Feel free to call the chair, who is Nohe Uuhajan, or myself, Alice Lee, at the county, and we'll be happy to help. Now, the other thing is, at the next council meeting, I am proposing a resolution to support housing, the Pulelehua project on the west side. But my estimation is that we're going to need at least a minimum of 3,000 units in the very near future, as people are transitioned out of hotels and their temporary quarters. We're going to need places for them to live. And so Pulelehua is one of the largest projects planned for West Maui and is almost ready to move forward. We may consider changing the cap or the total amount of units for the project from maybe 800 to 1,200. And that would certainly make a huge difference.
Yeah.
Because that would be a little over 1/3 of what we need. And then we have a couple of other projects coming up on the west side that will take care of another maybe 500. So at least 1,500 or half the need. And then we have people who want to perhaps move, and it's their choice, to Central Maui or other parts of Maui. And in Central Maui, we have some huge projects coming up, which would be the Atherton project in Waikapu. We also have other projects right below Wailuku Heights. There's another project coming up in Haile Maile. That one may be spoken for already because that has been in the works for some time.
Yeah, couple of years.
But there are a number of other projects that could probably fill the 3,000 unit need within maybe a year and a half to 2 years.
What are the price ranges?
We're very hopeful that everything will work out. We just have to make sure that we expedite the various processes, because if we don't, people will not be able to have the housing choices that they would like to have.
Now, I know some of these were created originally for affordable housing, and I think the one in Haile Miley was. And are the other ones that you're working on, they're also going to be within an affordable range?
Well, the Pulele Hua project would have been initially 50%, but the developer, Mr. Paul Chang, is offering to do it for 100%
Wow.
affordable.
Good.
But the details need to be worked out, and so that's the reason why we're encouraging the mayor to expedite that particular project. And hopefully we will receive more than 800. Hopefully we'll receive 1,200 units from the project, from Mr. Chang. So, that would be, I think, heaven sent in that, just by coincidence, we have this project ready to go, and we just need to add to the unit count, and that would help tremendously.
Yeah.
For those who need housing.
Oh gosh.
I'm sure people are tired of living in the hotel.
Yeah.
And they want other options. And to think that they could build right away on their properties may not be realistic at this time, because there are other issues to consider.
Let's address that, because I was just going to ask you that. That's an important question, because, so you hear and I hear. I want to rebuild my home. This is my property. I love this area, but this is going to be a challenge in many ways, as you were just starting to say. So I'm sorry I interrupted you, but let's address that. If someone comes and says, "Hey, I want to rebuild my house on this lot right here." And then the question would be, how long it would it take, how much is it going to cost, et cetera, et cetera. So how do you address that?
Oh, I would be very frank with people so that they're not, they're not misled. My understanding at this point is that there's a tremendous amount of infrastructure that has to be rebuilt amongst everything else. A lot of the transmission lines are either broken, destroyed, and need to be replaced. And also water transmission, water, sewer, all those things need to be replaced. Not to mention the roads and the removal of the debris, which is not going to happen overnight. It's going to take a long time, because the EPA and FEMA have to declare the various places safe. But right now, they're trying to quickly go through the various properties so that people can return to see, what's left, and if they can retrieve anything, but not to build, because it's not ready for that. All of that debris has to be removed. And that would take a very long time, not to mention reconstructing the water and sewer infrastructure, and repairing the roads, repairing the lines, repairing a lot of things so that it would be ready at some point to build on. And then the other challenge beyond the infrastructure would be the zoning. I don't know that everyone's property is zoned correctly according to the current code.
Oh, wow.
My understanding is a number of these properties are non-conforming properties.
Oh, of course.
So, let's say their properties were grandfathered in years ago, but the laws have changed.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if they're going to need to apply for new zoning or new types of permits or approvals. So a lot has to be done with regard to actual rebuilding one's home or business.
Well, that's the second part I was going to ask you about, is the business, because I have friends, as I'm sure you do, who had businesses there. Some were right on the ocean, they're on Front Street, and they have major concerns because they'd like to rebuild their business, but now they're concerned that maybe with the concerns of the local people of not wanting to build on the area where so many people died, they're going, well, how can I ever rebuild my business here if people want to rezone or make this an area where it's a sacred area, which I totally understand. But that even would be so hard to deal with that people are going, gosh, I know business owners that think it might take 5, 6, 7 years to get through all that.
That's possible. And and you have to face the reality, excuse me, the reality of not being able to build on the ocean anymore because of restrictions in the SMA, the shoreline management area. And, I don't know what the answer to that is ultimately, but one could be that some of these lands that are no longer, rebuildable, could be sold to a community land trust. That's possible. And that, in the end, the shoreline can be clear so that if there is another fire or any kind of disaster again, these properties wouldn't be at risk. And maybe there would be some compensation, available, if they wanted to sell their properties. But that's only one option.
Yeah.
There could be a number of other options because we haven't really analyzed all of this yet.
Well, it's very important. And of course, I guess I have to ask about what's going on with businesses because there are people who want to open their business. And I think the Maui Gateway Plaza, Lahaina Cannery, and some of the other businesses down there are already trying to figure out what it would take once they do have their power, their water, and infrastructure ready to go. If you're a business person and you have employees, you want to get them back to work, you want to, as you know and I know, the busier season for the holidays comes, and even if just for the local people, you want to be able to open. But then this has become up for a microscopic examination of how do you properly open your business if there's people who don't want you to. So that how do you address that? That's a big question.
Yeah, we have some very real challenges before us. We're going to have to bring everybody together and see how we can work together to come up with a common vision and common solutions. And it's going to be difficult because, as you say, some people don't want any rebuilding in certain areas. And some people want it. So how we can find common ground is where we're going to try and go to. However, we're not the ones, as a legislative body, we're not the people who would decide on the current situation, who can return to the various zones and so forth. That's beyond the council's purview. What we're trying to do is work on a comprehensive plan going forward.
Who makes the final decision on these things?
Well, I would imagine a number of agencies are involved in the final decision making. One would be because these are governed by laws. I don't think people should think it's somebody's opinion. There are laws, and so laws need to be followed. And so you have the state, you have the state involved, the Department of Health and other state agencies. You have the federal government, you have FEMA, you have the Army Corps of Engineers, you have the, who is the other one? Oh, the EPA. So all of these agencies have to come to an agreement on what is the path forward. None of this involves the county council. And then I'm sure the mayor also has a say as well, but not where his decision-making supersedes the federal government.
This is
so we have the
huge.
Federal government, we have layers. We got federal government, state government, and then us.
Wow.
The county.
So has this challenging time brought the council together, or as I've seen it, unfortunately, in some situations, there could be opinions so strong it becomes divisive. Are you seeing the council united or more divided with some of these situations?
I think for the most part, we are more united because we are united in helping the folks on the west side. We're not only united, we're committed to do that. And in the end, we may start to part company on some of the policies, but I think the basic policies on housing and rebuilding their lives, I think we're all on the same page. We really all of us want to help, and the West Maui folks are our top priority right now. So going forward with the budget and other resources that we can provide to the West Maui residents, the council is very much aligned with helping, and that's a top priority, as well as the people up country who suffered and had damages. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Again,
And I have to say also, I've been respecting the work that's been done by Yuki Lei and others trying to help that situation with the water and what's going on there as well. This is such a multi-layered juggling act, and it's so full of emotions, still raw emotions, that it's a real challenging situation. And I have to respect the council and all the people working on this to try to find a solution. It's not an easy one. And I guess I'd ask, what is the best thing people can do to try to work together to make a solution that everyone can, I don't know if everyone will agree, but everyone will come to terms with?
Well, people will need to realize that there is not one solution to every problem. There would be a range of options. That's what we want to present to them, a range of options, so that they don't feel, that they have no choice in the matter. To the extent possible, we want to give them a range. And because one example is, there may be a group that feels nobody should sell their property, and everybody has to rebuild. Okay, what if we encounter a group that feels that way?
Yeah. Well, I'm afraid. Alice, we'll have to continue this conversation. It's so interesting. I appreciate you taking the time, but we're out of time, and I thank you so much for the work you're doing and the whole council and everyone that's working to resolve the situation the best way possible. Thank you so much. And that's Business Matters for today, sponsored by Mokulele Airlines. I'm Cindy Paulos, happy to be filling in for Pamela Toonpop, who will be back. She's the president, of course, of the Maui Chamber of Commerce. Inviting you to tune in again next Tuesday or Friday. Wishing you blessings and very best wishes for a beautiful Maui day.